How's it going, everybody? Well, I'm just chilling. And I thought it would be a good time to make a video about something that's near and dear to me, which is knowing your neighbors. And knowing your friends, knowing your neighbors. You know, a lot of people, when I was growing up, not growing up so much as when I was maybe in my later teen into 20s, I had this idea that I wanted to get off the grid. I went to Montana to scout for land. I looked for places that I could get away from the system, if you will. Um, for many years, I pondered the different, I guess the different choices that I had to whether to opt out of society or to be part of it, and came to terms with the fact that you can't escape it. Everyone I've ever met who's talked about getting off the grid is always still on the grid. The fact that you're talking to a person shows that they're on the grid. I'm not saying that people haven't, but put it this way, if you want to get off the grid, you can't do it in this country. You can't completely isolate yourself because there's really nowhere left to go. People have gone out into the woods and, had found land, but it's always owned by someone or it's always controlled by someone. So I guess what I'm getting at is that I came to terms with the realization that the most important thing to me is to know my neighbors and to know those around me, because if I am going to live in the city or the suburbs, I have to know the people around me. And I made a couple videos last year about knowing your neighbors, and this was the first time when I've ever really needed the help, and I received the help I needed. When my power went out, I've got the guy on one side of me who is an ex-cop and an ex-probation officer who lives right next to my giant pot plants that were out in my backyard, 9 feet tall. I mean, there's no way he didn't see them. He doesn't judge me because of that. And he's the nicest guy. When my power went out, he let me borrow his generator, 2 of his generators actually, the big one and the small one, and he let me take all the firewood I needed from the side of his house. And as we didn't have any wood yet, he's basically saved our asses. And my other neighbor at the end of the street, I went down to borrow a blade from him for a hacksaw, and they came back over later, invited us to dinner with them, and brought us candles and all kinds of stuff, and everybody wanted to help. The guy across the street, my wife was talking about how he'd help her jump her car if her battery was dead, and all these little things you can do, these are the things that we help each other with. And when we feel like we're independent, it's only because we're living. I should say those who think that they can live independently are usually those who are either happy with very, very little, or those who have never had it bad, who have never had to ask for help, or never had to, and I'm a very humble person. I have a very hard time asking people for help when I need it. And this is because I don't like to feel as if I'm taking advantage of others. I feel as if I can take care of the situation myself. But people want to help. They want to help you make things easier. Like when I was cutting the tree down, my neighbor was trying to get me to borrow his chains and his chainsaw and his other tools and his gloves. He gave me his hard hat and all these different things. And it's just because he cares, And he came over and he knocked on my door about an hour ago, and he said, "Hey Josh, I just wanted to say thanks. It's really good to have a neighbor that's good on his word, and a good man that actually takes care of what he said he was going to do." He said, "You said you were going to take care of the mess, and you did." Which I went over there this morning and cleaned up all the branches that had fallen, plus all the leaves he already had of his, just threw them in my yard. Climbed up in the apple tree, cut down all the loose branches. This is just stuff you do when a tree falls in a neighbor's yard. Put the fence boards back and everything. And to him, that was an important thing. That showed a good neighbor. To me, it was just something that everybody should do, but not everybody would do. And that's the thing. I guess I just assumed everyone would, but having a neighbor even one neighbor, that is so key. It's weird the standoffish the standoffs people have between a neighbor behind them or beside them. Maybe somebody called the cops on somebody, and these are the people. These are your people. You know, this is your community. And so it's really hard to... sometimes people become very, and this is where I guess people become very untrusting of others because of something that's happened. Perhaps someone stole something from them. You know, I've had my car stolen out of my driveway twice now, or broken into twice, stolen once. People have taken random shit out of our yard. Somebody took this, what's the guy's name? St. Francis statue with the guy with the birds on him and everything. Big ass heavy statue. They just hauled it out of there. It was a piece, I mean, it was old. It wasn't really that old, but it wasn't worth anything. It's just people steal things, and I've been stolen from in the past, and then it makes you suspicious, and then people start suspecting their own neighbors. But you need your neighbors to protect you against that. You know, if they know you and they know your regular comings and goings, then they can let you know if something suspicious happened. And I've had my neighbors walk over and say, hey, I saw somebody messing around in your car last night, and you know, things like that. But really, it's just the issue of when the power goes out, when the shit hits the fan, what are you going to do? If you're self-reliant, that's great, but you still have to have, you know, some sort of a community in order to hold things together. Otherwise, I don't know. Those are just my thoughts on community and neighbors, and I'm very fortunate to have neighbors that I know, and I've lived here for 12 years now, and we own our home, so, you know, you get to know people that way. And I guess I just have a different view than I used to on people. I used to feel that people were just zombies, sheeple, didn't give a shit, didn't know any different. And then I realized that was my own arrogance, that thinking that I somehow had it figured out, and they didn't. So humility goes a long way, but yeah, there are a lot of idiots out there, don't get me wrong. You know, this world is full of complete imbeciles who make no effort to be a good neighbor. But there are the good ones too. We can't lump everybody together. We just have to remember that each person has to be treated as an individual, and never suspect or judge people just based on what we think they're like. You know, people are much different than our view of them. Take care, everybody. Have a great night.